ITV News has learned that hundreds of sub-postmasters still haven't had their wrongful convictions for fraud and theft overturned following the Horizon IT scandal. That is despite a promise that all of those affected would be written to by the end of July. Many haven't received that letter, leaving their lives in limbo. Our UK editor Paul Brand has been investigating their ongoing wait for justice.
We will introduce new primary legislation to make sure that those convicted as a result of the Horizon scandal are swiftly exonerated.
People lost their lives, their liberty and their livelihood, and they've been waiting far too long.
It's brilliant that now everyone can get their name cleared, their convictions overturned.
Parliament's promise was to exonerate sub-postmasters, not exasperate them with yet further delay. As governments have come and gone in recent months, it is time taken from victims like David, who spent months behind lock and key. Now free to live in Portugal, the only place he could escape his past with the post office.
When I got downstairs after those immortal words that the judge says, take him down, which she did, and I was numb. There's nothing else you can say. I just sat there absolutely numb. Suddenly, there's hilarious laughter from three fellow prisoners behind me, and they've got a picture of the Sun newspaper with my face on the front of the Sun.
The shame followed him out of prison. The debt did too. £33,000 of shortfalls forced him and his wife to move thousands of miles to live with friends, where he still doesn't want us to share his surname.
I was homeless, and the only place I could get was what they call a halfway house for prisoners. The halfway houses were not very salubrious. They were rough. You would have to watch your belongings, watch your back all the time. So we elected to come here. That is when I actually went to jail.
It was only recently that David finally received one of these letters stating the convictions on his record had been quashed.
I can hold my head up and say, my conviction's been quashed. Come on, guys, look at me differently. And people are looking at me differently. Sorry. Getting a bit emotional, I apologise. There were tears last night. That's how it's affected us, in the good way, to know that our conviction's been quashed. I can now say I'm not a criminal anymore.
But the vast majority of convicted sub-postmasters technically still are. Figures from the Ministry of Justice show only 178 exoneration letters had been sent by the start of this month. But we know at least 900 sub-postmasters were convicted. The government says some have already had their convictions overturned at court, but around 700 are still eligible for a letter and were supposed to have received one by July.
People who were wrongfully convicted up to 20 years ago, many have died. Many have tried to put it behind them. Many no longer want to put their hand up because people will think there's no smoke without fire. So there are an awful lot of inhibitors to people coming forward, and it's not their fault. It is the responsibility of government and the post office who failed these people to find them, vindicate them and compensate them.
And how were files stored?
The Post Office inquiry has already suggested why it might be hard to find the files on sub-postmasters.
The focus was on paper files rather than electronic.
There seemed to be concern that documents were being shredded.
But the former Post Office minister urges his new replacement not to let that slow things.
I don't understand what the delay is. What I've heard is the Ministry of Justice is saying there's more cross-referencing of cases than we thought in terms of identifying the individuals, and I'm not in any shape or form trying to play party politics with this because I never have, but it's really important the new government, the new ministers get hold of this, don't let it drift.
David's exoneration means he's now looking to move back to the UK. A life ruined by the post office scandal can be rebuilt, at least partially.
So it continues, on it goes. And astonishingly, we hear today that the Horizon system still isn't working.
That's right, Mary, because the Post Office inquiry has started up again. It's now in its final phase, but no end in sight, as you say, to the problems, it seems, with the Horizon system. The inquiry team surveyed sub-postmasters and they found that 7 out of 10 have had unexpected discrepancies on Horizon since 2020. And in fact, 9 out of 10 have had some kind of problem with Horizon in the past year. So this continues. Thankfully, little risk of prosecution now due to Horizon glitches, but nevertheless, real anger still about these past convictions that haven't been overturned. The Ministry of Justice said in response to our reporting this evening, the government is working to notify all postmasters whose convictions have been quashed as quickly as possible. We've committed to publishing monthly updates on this figure commencing the 3rd of October. They say many cases are complex. They date back decades, and it's right we ensure every potential victim of this injustice has their case carefully considered. I think sub-postmasters are a little tired of this careful consideration there. We heard Joe Hamilton, for example, the former sub-postmaster, saying at the National Television Awards this month, new government, same old delays. And, you know, since the drama aired in January, it's won awards. Sir Alan Bates is due a knighthood any day now. And yet still sub-postmasters don't have that one piece of recognition they really crave, which is to have their criminal convictions quashed.